welcome. I'm going to just go ahead and spotlight me for everybody as we get started and waiting for folks to join. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining this special Meet the Miniaturist live stream. Hi, Marcella. Good to see you. Yeah, I'll just wait another minute, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we bring on our special guests from down under and far, far away. And I can't wait to get to this. So say hello in the chat box if you're just joining, and say hello. Make sure you can hear me and all of that. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we bring on our guests. So I have a couple of things going on right now. I just came back from the Philly show. It was an awesome show. I did a recap of my own haul, so you can go to my YouTube channel and see that. I have a webinar coming up, a free webinar about how to build an awesome miniatures collection. Again, you can go to my website. You can see links to join that. And coming soon is an amazing estate sale that I'm working on right now. I'm going through a lot of the yummy goodies, and there are a number of pieces from, it's from an estate of a woman in Tennessee via New York and South Florida. There are a number of Nell Corkin pieces. So this is crazy exciting. I'm just getting started going through the collection now. So continue to follow and get updates on when that estate sale is happening, and follow me there. And also, thank you again for joining. If you're just joining, say hello in the chat box. Kingston, Jamaica, great to see you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, let us get started because we have a lot to get through. Just so everybody knows, miniatures continue to sort of explode throughout the world, not only as a hobby, but as an art form. And we're seeing that in so many different places. Small is Beautiful exhibition, Paris, London, New York, now in Brussels. Pop-up galleries are happening now. That's a new story. And of course, there's the little free art galleries that happening. So there's a lot of news, a lot of interest in miniatures. And importantly, we have Ashely Bird, who's the senior curator of art and design at the museum, the Queen Victoria Museum and Art Gallery in Tasmania. And we're going to get to talk a little bit about where that is and a little bit about the museum itself. And of course, we have Joshua Smith, who is co-curator of this exhibition and is also an amazing miniaturist in his own right. So I can't wait to hear the story around the exhibition, how this came about. So why don't we start, why don't just tell us a little bit, Ashely, if you can, about the museum itself, where it's located, what it's focused on, and then let's talk about the inspiration for this Miniature Worlds exhibition that's happening right now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Darren, and welcome to everyone, coming in to our little world here in Launceston in Tasmania. So yeah, island of Tasmania. So we're the state at the bottom of Australia.
Yeah. And
I was brought up in Victoria on the mainland, but moved here about 15 years ago. And Launceston is in northern Tasmania. So it's actually it's close to Bass Strait, and it's an island. It's very much an island culture in lots of ways. We have a population of under 1 million people for the entire island, and a population here of about 160,000. And I work within the Queen Victoria Museum and Art Gallery. Is one of the oldest regional collections in the country, one of the biggest regional collections in the country, that is made up of three main types. It's made up of history, and lots of the history of Tasmania and Launceston. It's made up of a natural science collection of lots of endemic animals, botany specimens, and all that kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And art and design collection that takes in colonial works right up to contemporary works over the past 130 years. And my role is to look after a collection that is paintings, works on paper, glass, sculpture, the whole ball of wax.
Yeah. And now miniatures.
And now miniatures, yeah. So the miniature idea came from when I first got the role here as a senior curator. Before this, I was working, I was teaching visual art and sculpture at the university here. And I made the jump to the curatorial role. Yeah. And I was able to, with a new director, to pitch some ideas. A few small ideas about doing some work with local artists. But I said one of the things that I see as a rising art form that can really have its dues as fine art is miniature making, and not just miniature making that is more of your architectural kind of miniatures and models, about depictions of places that are created in fine detail, that depict places around the world, that take on the mystery and the magic of things small.
Let me ask you, was it a hard sell? Did the folks that you pitched this to, did they get it right away? Do they understand miniatures? Did they understand miniatures?
Not really. What they needed was inspiration, and that inspiration came from works by pardon me. It came from works by a few artists, and one of those was Josh. So Josh, I'm very much. I just finished a postgraduate degree, a PhD in visual art and design, where I was actually referencing a lot of nostalgia and places that are really quite current for people in their minds. And one of the places for me is a photo booth there were two of them. One that was in South Yarra, a suburb of Melbourne, and one near Flinders Street Station in central Melbourne. I still go to those photo booths and get these little strips of black and white photographs.
Yeah.
And I had this nostalgic kind of pull towards these places, and then found that one of the miniaturists that I was following had done an amazing, faithful, right down to a cigarette butt in front of it, miniature of that with lights and everything. And that's how I pitched the idea. I pitched the idea by an image of that I'd taken many images of that photo booth.
Yeah.
Then I juxtaposed that with images of Josh holding that miniature photo booth.
Yeah.
And that was what sold it, as well as works by artists that I was following at the same time that we'll get to, kind of Danielle, Ryan Monahan, some of the greats that I realized were connected to Josh. And then I said, well, this is something where I have an interest, but I don't know the community well enough. I was very much a fan, but not somebody connected through making so much.
Yeah.
So I got in touch with Josh via email and said, I've got this exhibition, and I've been given the green light for it. Now, let's see about how we make a foundation based on you being part of this exhibition, and then we built from there.
So when you first heard this, Josh, because you're a maker, you're a maker first and foremost. Have you curated a show before? Is this your first show?
So in a previous life to doing miniatures, I actually used to run my own art gallery.
Oh.
So I'm based in Adelaide, South Australia, and I used to run a gallery called Espionage that I ran for about 4 years. I think in the space of 4 years, I ran over 80 exhibitions. With over 600 local, interstate, international artists, both emerging and established. Yeah. And then once I closed the brick and mortar store, I then did another 3 successful pop-up shows. I think the first one we had about 3,000 people, which came through in a single day.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
And always with miniatures, I mean, has been the medium.
No. Previous to doing the art gallery, I was doing stencil art. So I did that for about 16, 17 years. But when I had the gallery, it was all different forms of artwork. I don't think I had any miniatures per se, but I was doing everything from like oil paintings to abstract work, sculpture, street art, graffiti, like the whole spectrum of different types of work. Yeah. So I when I was contacted, I came from a unique position that I've been doing miniatures for about 8 years now and exhibiting those all across the world. But then I also had my own personal experience of running exhibitions and how to do everything from like getting the artists to doing the promotion work, marketing, hanging the work.
Yeah.
Luckily, Ashely and his team pretty much took care of everything.
Yeah.
As far as my co-curatorial role, it was more a case of like helping find the artists,
Right.
getting them on board, and things like that, rather than a lot of the hands-on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like the perfect collaboration, because when you're talking about miniatures or any art, you know, the artists want to make sure they're comfortable sharing their work, how it's going to be presented, how it's going to be treated.
Totally.
So between the two of you, I mean, I think it's a great synergy, and I just can't wait to get to it. So what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to share a walkthrough of the exhibition. If you wouldn't mind just taking us through what we're seeing, and talk a little bit about some of the pieces. I mean, it's really very this really is sweeping over. So tell us, if you can, a little bit about some of the work, about the space.
So this is the original museum building. Now it's been converted as an art gallery. So this was first built in the 1890s. And what we're seeing here upstairs is work by David Hourigan, who he was the next artist aside from Josh, who had done some iconic buildings in Melbourne that I really loved. And then I got in contact with him, and I was in Melbourne, my hometown, and met with him, and we started this idea about, you know, whether he was interested in doing a miniature of a Launceston building. That one being the Gasworks building, which is been faithfully reproduced in miniature for the show.
So it became a collaboration, a discussion early on with the artists about what they wanted to present.
Yeah, because there were some artists, even some of the artists that were international, that they were really interested in Launceston building. Some of them, they didn't know Tasmania, and they were interested in going, well, send us a raft of things and we can see whether we can make things in time. And no one really did, but a lot of artists made new work for this. They had some special signature works, but there were other artists that made new works for the show. So there's such a wonderful community of people once you get to know them, and it was always via email.
Yeah, I'm struck by the reach, that this is such a global collaborate. There are so many artists in this show from all over the world. Josh was the one that was able to connect me to all these people, and then all of a sudden I was seeing where I was really reaching out to get the work, and he liaised so much with people. I mean, like Lobo, because he's, you know, some of these artists, English is their second language, so you actually had you know, another layer of communication to be able to work out how you're going to get the work here. Yeah, I would imagine. And we're going to get to some of the challenges, but let's continue. So what were some of the greater challenges in putting this show together? I mean, you mentioned the fact that there's communication gaps, there's distance, obviously.
Absolutely. I think that for us, one of the other things that I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to prove to the new director that we had at the time that something like this, given that it is an exhibition of small things, that by virtue of them being miniature, that we could actually be more ambitious. And that was, so when Josh said, when we're talking about international artists, we started with a small number, and then Josh was like, can we increase it to this? Can we increase it to this? There's a few other that are important. And I said yes to everyone. And then, you know what, I'll ask for permission. I'll ask for
It is quite a big show. How many artists and how many pieces in total?
So 20, so in total, including everything that Josh, Mylyn and David made, there's over 34, 35 works. I mean, this work in particular, Andreas from Greece, his work has got the record for international freight. It came within a week from Athens to Launceston without anything broken or anything. It was just perfect, whereas it took weeks for other things to arrive. So this one we're seeing, did you want to talk about this one, Josh?
Sure. So yeah, when Ashely invited me into the exhibition, he gave me a few different locations which are based in Launceston that he thought might sort of make a good sort of reference point for building something from the city there. And it's actually a loading dock behind it used to be a department store called Birchall's, I think, if Ashely wants to correct me.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, like a big aspect with a lot of my work is like graffiti and street art. So when he sent through photographs of that particular location, that instantly resonated with me, more so than some of the other locations. And very often, as is in the case with my work, I built it entirely just using reference photos.
Oh, wow.
Not having seen the real building like in person. And like a few of my other builds, namely the ones which I've built from Hong Kong, it was quite surreal because I'd spent maybe about 4 to 6 weeks building as a miniature, having not seen it, and then ship it down to Tasmania. And then when I arrived with my wife, the day that we flew in, we were looking for the real life location, and we went down some random back alley, and I'm like, oh, I think it's like maybe this way. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually the building. So it's actually quite a surreal experience when you're working on something like right down to the smallest details for such a long time, but having not seen it in person, and then you see it in person after you've built the miniature is just such a weird experience.
Did you feel like you did it justice? You felt good when you saw it, I'm sure.
Yeah. Like, I think with a lot of those types of experiences, it's kind of like, wow, I really nailed that and I got that down, but I wish that I knew about that because I would have built that. I think that when I got to the real life location, I think on the ground there was kind of like a lockable barrier, which I think like raised up, and then you could lock it so that like vehicles couldn't go down there. And I saw that, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I had reference photos of that because I would have built that as well. But yeah, very often, as is the case with this type of stuff, when you're building it, you're thinking that it's a lot larger in real life, or in some cases smaller. And then when you get to the real life location, it's like, oh, it's actually a lot bigger or a lot smaller than what I thought it would be.
Right. The perspective changes when you actually see it in person.
Yeah, totally. And it's so weird because when we were there and we were photographing it, and there was like a random walker by, and he's like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, actually, I built this as a miniature. And he's like, what? And then I pull out my phone and I'll show him the photographs that my photographer has taken of the miniature. And he's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's odd. And then it turns out that when I'm talking to him, that he actually is a volunteer which works at the gallery which is showing it, which is just surreal.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. I see there's a mix of structure, right? But there's also what I call more traditional miniatures in the show. We just panned through some food miniatures. Can you talk a little bit about like just the mix of, I want to say medium? I don't know if that's the right way to say it. But there is structure, but there's also traditional 12 scale. Let's talk about scale. There are different scales in this show.
Yeah, I think like right from the get-go when Ashely invited me to help curate the show, like I follow a range of different miniaturists in working in all different types of scale. And like, as you said, you've got more people which are like traditional, sort of doing food, or your more traditional like dog's house miniatures, right through to what I would term as like new age, or the new wave of miniaturists, which their works are more similar to mine. So I think it was important to not only showcase a range of different styles,
Mhm.
but also people from all different walks of life, from many different countries. But I think one of the most important aspects was, like for me personally, was highlighting the works of people which I think that their work deserved to be known, but they themselves aren't really all that well known. Like we do have artists like such as Ryan Monahan and others, which they've got quite a strong social media presence, and they've already established themselves quite well. But then there's a lot of other artists like Omkara Creations from India, which like some of these people are only just starting out, or that's Omkara's work just there, or they do very highly like detailed, like high quality work, but their work just isn't known or isn't shown. And I think for a lot of the artists involved, I think for the majority of them, it was actually their very first exhibition. So to have their work showcased in an international like exhibition of like pretty world-class miniatures, I think is a pretty good thing. But do you want to elaborate further, Ashely?
I think that like me, I've just been a fan, and I'd followed so much of the miniaturists that were, that were those miniaturists that actually do have a large profile. The story about Omkara's work is actually really quite a lovely one, and it is probably one of the greatest challenges, but one of the greatest triumphs, was that his work did actually arrive in time for the exhibition, but it was very, very fraught with difficulty because he doesn't speak English.
Wow.
So, and just my partner and I, we don't have kids, but we actually have kind of like a bit of a surrogate kind of girl that kind of like that we've met, that we look after from time to time, and she's from India. And she's moved to the mainland, and I called her and I said, do you reckon you could help me with some translation?
Yeah.
So said yes. So for Omkara for him to deal with FedEx and for us to deal with him and to work out everything we needed, we had this. I would talk to my contact, and she would get in contact with Omkara. And then Omkara would go back to her, and we had this, and it took a long time for emails and for all those things. I actually called FedEx in Dubai early one morning to try to broker exactly what I was trying to do. I just didn't understand what was being sent. And even when it got to Australia, it was held by customs in Australia. And it just got, the more and more he was excited by the fact that this was going to be, him having this international stage for his artwork. It probably, and I can speak for the two of us, for both myself and Josh, it made it more and more important to put the effort in to get his work here by hook or by crook. So there were some of those stories that behind the scenes that were real, ended up being like labours of love, that when you got them there and you told them that their work had arrived, they were kind of overjoyed that they were in the same realm as their contemporaries.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised, and I shouldn't be surprised, but the miniature, the expansion and growth of miniatures is a global phenomenon, and it's just happening everywhere. Why do we think now, what is happening?
Oh, I think part of what Josh just said a little while ago is probably, and Josh is the one that's going to have a lot more to say about this. But from my perspective, there was a few things that were happening in the zeitgeist of popular culture at the same time that I was looking at, where people were actually doing a few miniatures that were based around kind of like things that were part of film and television. Also, street art culture had gone through this amazing phase in the past 20 years of where many artists, like Josh, like Rules One, some of those artists, they're people that have come to the art form from doing stenciling and graffiti and those kinds of street art things. So I kind of, And then there's all these artists like Tinky Sontag who are actively doing what would be three-dimensional graffiti, kind of like in place out there. And all those things for me kind of started to coalesce in a place where I think that it was time to say, and it's not unusual to say that there's all these exhibitions happening in the States and everywhere, because I think that we are kind of like on this foundation of something that is bubbling to the surface as something really, really quite huge.
Yeah.
Well, part of the hugeness.
Yeah. Josh, you agree?
Yeah, totally. So like when I started maybe about 8 or so years ago, like I was actually kind of working on it sort of under wraps for a couple of months, because I thought that I'd actually come up with a truly unique art form. And I'm like, oh shit, I better sort of keep this under wraps until I've got a few pieces sort of put together. And when I started putting my work out there, I think it was initially an exhibition which was in Melbourne, and then I was like pretty much like a month later I was picked up by a gallery in New York City, and then once I was in that, I think it was in the Volta Art Fair in New York, and from there it really exploded, really took off, and my work became viral. But there was other artists which were doing similar work, which I was unaware of at the time. And we were kind of like all working independently. And then we all sort of were getting global recognition more or less at the same time.
Yeah.
I think, and it's not a new art form. Like artists like Randy Haig and Alan Wolfson, they've been doing exactly what I do, but they've been doing it for like the last 30 years.
Right.
But I was unaware of that when I started out. And I think that like when I started my own work, I think that social media really played an important role. Like the emergence of social media, like especially with Instagram and also Facebook, it's just become a lot easier to share your work. And once like press and promotion for my work and others were sort of going out there and getting out there, it had a snowball effect, and it just became larger and larger and larger. And I think that like my own work and like the work of artists like Ryan Monahan and others, like our work being shared on social media, and in like online articles and stuff, I think just it really inspired a whole new generation of artists. Yeah. And it's just like as they've like the newer artists, as they've sort of like grown bigger, like artists like Danny Cortez in New York, like as they've grown bigger, they then themselves have inspired others. And I think it's a movement that, as I said, it's nothing new, but I think that certainly with Instagram, TikTok, etc., it's a movement and an art form that the more that it gets shared on social media, the more it's inspiring a new wave of artists which are going out and doing their thing, and it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger.
Do you feel like the miniatures have had, not as much credibility early on with galleries, and did it get its due? I feel like it's finally arrived. Miniatures have arrived.
Yeah, I think that like I was very lucky early on. Like I'd only been doing miniatures for a couple of months before I was picked up by galleries in New York, London, Berlin, and Paris. Granted, unfortunately, a lot of the galleries that I was working with screwed me around in one way or another. But I think that like it was very quickly, like the galleries were very quick to adopt it as a legitimate art form. But I think that like myself and a few others, we became very lucky that our work was picked up as quick as what it was. And for people in other countries, as we found with the Miniature Worlds exhibition, there was an artist which approached me which they're based in Europe. And they weren't one of the artists that we asked initially, but they came to me direct and was like, hey, I noticed that you're putting on this exhibition. I don't really actually have any opportunities to showcase my work in an exhibition or galleries. And that's something that galleries here in my country won't actually do, that they're not interested. Do you think that it would be possible to have my work involved in the show? And immediately, like their work was of a very high caliber, and we jumped at the chance, because it's like, here's a person which doesn't have the opportunity that others are lucky enough to have. Sure, like let's get it in and do it. But I think that, like, it's one thing when like private art galleries are showcasing this work. I think that legitimizes it for sure. But when galleries such as QVMAG, like institutions, I think once they start pushing it as an art form, it just elevates it even further.
Totally agree.
I think
it usually does start with the art galleries, because they're going to pick up the new and different and unique, and then the bigger galleries and museums take it from there. I wanted to talk a little bit more about, I'm going to stop the share because I want to pull up just some of my favorite pieces, which actually happen to be similar pieces that are more in the 12 scale. But before I do that, I want to talk about this. This is
Devin Drake.
Talk a little bit about that piece. You know, we talk about things that just speak to you. This this just calls out. This is screaming to me. Talk a little bit about this piece.
Yeah, I think that with Devin Drake's work, like I think that his work really focuses on things that like are just like so overlooked, but like so everyday, like something that a lot of people would find mundane. And I think a lot of people would question, like, why would you build that as a miniature? But like, it's got so much detail and like tells so much of a story. It's something that, like, if you saw that like in real life, you would walk past and not even give it a second glance or a second thought. But I really do love that about his work. And like with a lot of the works that we were getting into the show, we didn't actually know what we were going to get. So so when Devin Drake was like, here's what I'm building for the show, it's like, cool, okay, random, but I love it.
Well, that's actually, I just want to mention, like, I got a comment on one of my posts recently, and I wrote it down because it is just so, it just so wraps up in a few words what great miniatures are. And this person said the best miniatures are random and relatable. And I just think that just sums it up. And I don't remember what it was. I think I posted a shot of the 12 scale Birkenstocks, and that for whatever reason that just went crazy. People loved it on my social media, and the comment was just so wrapped up. Like, that's it. That's what makes, I think, miniature so awesome. I wanted to show a couple of I want to go back to the 12 scale ones, because I think for this audience, people can relate mostly to 12 scale. And let's talk about this. It's the food miniatures. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, this is almost a movement in and of itself. Because when not just recently, you fall down a rabbit hole of kind of making videos, and recently looking at people that do use polymer clay to make miniature food. And you're seeing someone doing all this cane work where it's this huge cane of something and it turns into a slice of tomato, and you kind of go, I mean, this is the translucency that there is between the flesh and the peel of cantaloupe, and the outside of those ladyfinger kind of biscuits that are on the side of the cake and everything. I mean, that, and at that scale, It's the crust on the little lamb chops that are there as well, and all those things. There's people that in the exhibition, and we have to kind of clean the perspex all the time because the fingerprints and the breath, they're just going, are they red onions?
I love it.
Exactly like red onions. I can eat that stuff. It's amazing.
I love it. Yes, there's another one I wanted to share. I think it's Astrid is her name.
Astrid Wilk, yeah.
Can we talk about her work? I don't know if you can see it. Hold on. Yeah, again, it goes back to just, the house plants. It doesn't get any more relatable than that.
I think
when she sent the images of this, there's one image like right in the middle of that, between all of the plants, there's a single kind of brown dead leaf that has fallen to the ground, and it's the towel. So it's when you're talking about that relatable thing, and it is so spot on, because when I look at things like this, where there's this little bit of detail that then all of a sudden takes away any idea of perfection, it's a lived-in environment, then it's relatable, and to take that slice of kind of like of where these trolleys are, looking at Devon Drake's work, is that it's far more difficult to make the authentic lived-in environment work in than it is making it completely perfect.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. And Josh, you probably can talk more about that. It's the process of building the layering of the old. You could, right?
Yeah.
It's quite a process.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, like with my own work, it's like that layering of like decay and like rust and grime and dirt and things like that, which, like, I've always looked at it that these are kind of like layers of time, that like all of that really tells a story, and especially with works which have got graffiti on them as well. It's kind of like you can see that like physical layering of graffiti, and like something might just start off with like one graffiti tag, but then it like slightly covers another and things like that. But I just think that it's things like that which it kind of tells a narrative, but just with like a static three-dimensional work. And you can see all of that history there, but it's just a three-dimensional object. But awesome. I really do love Astrid's work with the plants. I think hands down she's one of the best miniaturists in the world which does plants, and Ashely's exactly right. It's kind of like having the leaves which are like brown and sort of like dying and stuff like that. It's things like that. It's the imperfections that I think really, and the detail to imperfections, which I think really just elevates miniatures to another level.
Yeah, one of the things that really inspired, it really got me so excited was the conversation with Josh about doing that loading dock. Was that he wanted to know about what the layers were behind the graffiti that was there, so that he almost wanted to reverse time and actually in a miniature method create the layers from going backwards in time. Because what I haven't told Josh is that I was having a conversation about to put a proposal in to acquire that work into the collection so it permanently stays with us. And what I did was I had some photographs of the miniature, and then I actually went out and took a better photograph of the actual location, and I just took a cropped shot, so and put them next to each other, and I said, okay, for everyone in the committee, there was about 5 or 6 people around the room. I said, we're going to do the Pepsi challenge here. What's the miniature?
That's great.
What's the miniature and what's the real location? And more got it wrong than right.
Wow.
So
that's great.
There was oh no, I go past here all the time. That's the site, and it's like, no, sorry, you're wrong.
And your work is done.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I thought, what can I do? What can I do as a provocateur here to make sure I can actually really make the best claim to the people that make decisions further up the tree than me to say that this is fine art, and that means that it should stay in our collection the same way that a work of art stays in a collection from now until years after I'm dust.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
That's great.
Wow,
That's great.
That's just fantastic. I wanted to check in with our audience. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists? My goodness, it's just amazing. Talk a little bit about how long is this? It's not on that long, right? How long is this show on for?
It's on until the start of February. So it's
okay.
not. We have a exhibition program that kind of we have 3 months, 4 month shows. And this one was one where I just jumped at the chance to be able to make the connections that I needed to, and then be able to have something that comes over. Well, it's our summer, so that we get a lot of our tourists coming through during the summer, because we've got this and other exhibitions that will kind of capture people's imagination. And that's pretty much because I've come to curatorial practice from being an artist myself. I don't have this idea that it needs to be all of the old stuff. If I can mix the old and the new, because there is a miniature in there that is part of the old collection, which is about 110 years old, and it's of a church, and that's part of the history collection. So it's for me, it's about trying to kind of to create the fun. And when you see, yesterday we had a whole bunch of school kids through here, and all I do is I just walk through and kind of listen to what they have to say. Yeah, and they go, look, I hate avocado, but those avocados are so cute, Yes. Or somebody has seen the little secret thing that's underneath the loading dock, Josh.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Great.
See, that's awesome.
So stuff like that, and I think that that it's the imagination. There's a book that I was reading when I was researching my postgraduate degree that was called On Longing, and there's a chapter in there that is called it's a conversation about the gigantic and the miniature. That we have this fascination about seeing things that we know in our world thrown down in scale. Because one of the references that I have for you, Darren, is that my major interest and knowledge base here is in furniture. And I just put an exhibition on about 2 years ago about these Jimmy Possum chairs, which are chairs that were made by a maker in Tasmania, and they're very much kind of related to the American Windsor chair. And you had on your Instagram recently one of the Bill Klinger.
Bill Klinger, yeah.
Windsor chairs, and it's and I look at that and I just go, that sitting in somebody's hands. Yeah. Like I saw the photo booth in the hands of Josh, and it's it gets to somewhere in your psyche as a child or somewhere that is so unique and fun and fulfilling.
Yeah, for sure. We did get a question from Mahiri. Is the block of miniature houses all by the same artist or a collection? Oh, I know what you're talking
about. Houses. That's actually one that I forgot to talk about. Well, they're I discovered we had a volunteer downstairs that works in natural science, and she said that she was part of a miniaturist group here in Launceston, just in my hometown here.
Oh wow.
And that they'd done. Each one of them had taken on the challenge of doing a single terrace from a set of terraces, Victorian terraces in Launceston. So I went out. They meet at a Christian community hall once a month to do miniatures and to make these miniatures. And I didn't know about them at all. And I went out there to meet them, and they're amazing.
It's a group of artists. So it's a group project.
Each one took one miniature each to do, and somebody then did the cafe at the end. And so they're the Launceston arm of the Tasmanian miniature enthusiasts.
Oh my goodness, who knew?
Yeah, so we have some, and so the great thing about this cross pollination is that these people that are very, very local, they're kind of now connected to all of the people that are part of the show through Instagram and those kinds of things. And they're now contacting. Someone contacted me the other day and said, there's a material that I have to get, and I don't know where to get it. Do you know? Can you help me out? I said, well, I don't, but I can find out. Yeah. there's cross pollination of kind of like of ways of making.
Yeah, good eye, Mihiri. I did see that whole row of structures. I didn't know it was a group effort. That's pretty awesome. All right. Does anybody have any other questions before we wrap this up and let our guests go home and get their day started? Because I know you guys it's your morning. It's our evening. So the show is on till February. So book your tickets now to Tasmania, guys.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes, please come. Yeah. And it is one of the most beautiful places on the face of the earth. Tasmania really is gorgeous.
I can only imagine. Well, guys, thank you so much for talking about your show. You've done such an amazing job. I hope I wish you the best. And I hope millions of people come through and see it, because you really did a great job. Thank you so much.
And thank you too, Darren, because I'm a fan of what you do in miniature, and everything that you do in promoting this and kind of keeping this community talking together is amazing. So thank you. And all of your fans online. That.
Thank you. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Thank you at home for joining, and we'll see you next time on Meet the Miniaturist. Guys, take care. Bye.
Thank you.